Welcome to today's episode. Yes, today we are talking about the hard part about breaking patterns, the behind the scenes that no one is really talking about. And I noticed something profound today about myself. I tend to notice patterns in a quick minute that I didn't think was anything that I needed to focus on my whole life up until recently. And I thought something was wrong with me for noticing things that nobody else seems to notice. And maybe they do. But in my experience, a lot of people bypass. They don't listen to their inner knowing, their intuition, their gut. They push, they perform, they pay for all the things. They hire the mentor or go to jobs and sit in toxic jobs that they hate. They grow numb. People have the pattern of growing numb to what is around them. We could be sitting in the worst environment ever. And because we need the money or because we like the something, whether it's the benefits or the PTO or anything else that goes in line with that, we stay. We grow comfortable. And I myself have been realizing a ton of things. So I love bringing what I'm learning to you behind the scenes because today you are going to find some patterns and you're going to find that starting to break them is not as easy as people think or assume. Well, let me just address this head on and it's just going to happen in 60 seconds and then I'm going to be able to go about my day and I'm going to be able to go about my life, and that might work for a short moment, but 30 days from today it's still going to show up. But it's going to get really, really loud. In fact, the very things that we need to address grow louder the every moment that we ignore it, brush it off like a fly or a gnat, right? Or heaven forbid, a swarm of bees, right? Bees, you know, for those of you who don't like bees and are like, oh my gosh, you run with bees, don't do that. They really are harmless things. I almost said people, but bees are not people. Bees are very unique, but they will bother you if you wear certain flowery scented perfumes, oils, colognes, or lotions. Big bumblebees might even chase you if you try to sit on a grassy area before you start your shift at work, and then you're like, oh shit, what is this? Where did this fat black bumblebee come from? I mean, you could probably saddle that thing and ride it into your job. It's that big. But just like anything else, until we deal with the swarm, till we hit it head on, until we decide we're done. We're done entertaining patterns. We're done entertaining the status quo. And we're done entertaining what we believe to be normal. It's still going to pop up. It's still going to hit us in the face. And we can grow so numb to it, it becomes normal. It becomes part of us. But I'm here to bring you another key to disrupt patterns and also give you some keys to bring you some ease, even though it's uncomfortable to break patterns. It's the patterns, the disrupting patterns that's sometimes unbearable. It can break us. It can cause us to bend. It can cause us to want to quit. It can become very uncomfortable. But once we see patterns in our own lives, we can't unsee them. Once we start addressing things, the patterns that keep us bombarded and in the same cycles and doing the same things, there comes a point in our lives where we can ignore the signs, ignore the flags, or we can start asking questions like, why does this keep popping up? Why am I making decisions like this? Why am I repeating the same pattern of buying all these master classes, but I can't seem to figure out why I'm still stuck in my business and can't seem to move the needle forward? And instead of maybe even getting an answer that you are needing, you get more strategy for things that just aren't in the direction of where you want to go. And it's no fault of really anybody's. It's no fault of your own. It's just you're asking the questions when you already know the answer. So you ask questions and you get answers, and they can lead you, the answers that you get can lead you farther away from what you really truly are wanting to do, are supposed to be doing. The patterns that we get, I don't want to say stuck in, because we're not stuck. We're not a tree, we're not a cactus. We aren't a rock. We are living, breathing human souls in an earth suit, okay, aka our bodies. We have a spirit. We're covered in flesh. We are human. We are not freaking robots. We aren't required to be programmed. We're not designed to stay programmed. But from birth, I believe that we are programmed to repeat the same patterns and call it things as good. Repetition is king. Consistency is king, right? We hear all these things. Well, it's good to have a routine. Yeah, but what if the routine that you're having is causing you to feel like you're dying 1,000 deaths because you would rather sit and sip your coffee, enjoy listening to the birds, and seeing the sunshine? What if that's all you want to do, but because of the programming you've been given is telling you to follow some pattern and routine that doesn't even fit what you want to do? And who gets the benefit for putting ourselves into a slavery type of cage? Who benefits from that? I can tell you who doesn't benefit. You don't benefit. We don't benefit. I don't benefit. For years, I put myself into a pattern of building a routine based on the churches that I had followed and the programming I received since birth. Foster care, foster home after foster home, a lot of religious foster homes. I'm going to say something that is going to spark, I know, some, and you might say, thank God, hallelujah, somebody's saying this. How is it that the Christian community is allowed to do foster care and adoption, and yet, in my experience, that was the number one community that created harm and abuse from people who were active in the church, did Bible studies, went to conferences, carried a Bible, their disciplinary measures. You can watch the documentary Shiny Happy People on Prime, Amazon Prime. And if you have to pay for it, go watch it. It's going to open up your eyeballs and your ears, and it's going to introduce you to a way of living that some religious man who acted like he was God taught the Christian community, religious community, and how to discipline their children. And let me tell you, I experienced abuse under the hands of predators who were in my almost adoptive home the first 10 years of my life. They looked the part, they acted the part. We sure looked perfect, but behind the scenes, there was abusive stuff going on. And the church that we were at the time turned their heads. They ignored it, pushed it under the rug. Meanwhile, we sat under that. So the first 10 years of my life, I was programmed to sit in the pattern of performing for safety, to sit in the pattern of proving myself that I'm worthy. Oh, and perfection? Okay, so I have to be perfect to keep myself safe from getting beaten and abused? Oh, okay. So that's what I picked up. The patterns of proving and performing. But there was a reason, and it came at a cost, because at the cost of my happiness and my childhood and to keep the peace, it cost me a lot. My joy. Like, I remember certain things in my childhood that brought me joy, but I don't know that I had a joyful childhood. I mean, there are parts of it that I remember that did bring me joy, but most of my childhood, if not my entire first 18 to 20 years of my life, was very unpleasant, unhappy. I wasn't allowed to be happy. Foster kids aren't supposed to be happy. You think you're supposed to receive something? No, you're not worthy to receive anything. So imagine this is the patterns I picked up from being programmed with messaging and actions. You know how they say that actions speak louder than words? Well, they do speak a whole heck of a lot louder than words. So you pick it up. I picked it up. I became great. I was a great performer. I was a great pattern follower. But ever since I was little, as far back as I can remember, I have always gotten in trouble for disrupting patterns. For saying the thing, I would get in trouble. So even as I'm doing this podcast, and even though I've been growing my podcast now for a really, really long time, which, by the way, I've had no production team. I am Team Tiffany, right? I don't have employees. I don't have a editing team. I have done it myself. I've grown my podcast to over 1,000 downloads, listens. It's still growing in 6 months. I brag about that because I believed my voice wasn't worth listening to. And I can't explain how it is that people keep flocking back to my podcasts. I have a friend that gave me a beautiful encouragement yesterday. And she said, Tiffany, your podcasts are like church. Okay, there's church and then there's church, right? So we have church where I bring it. I don't hold back on here. Church is where we hide and we perform and we prove. And what I was taught is that I also had to perform for a loving God. I had to prove that I was perfect to be accepted. I was taught that God hates me because I wasn't perfect. I was taught that God is an abusive man. He sits up there and is a slave driver. That's what I was taught. Only if you're perfect, only if you're religious, only if you read your Bible and don't cuss, don't drink because drinking is sin, cussing is sin, Halloween is sin, eating, but yet we got to go to trunk or treats. Whoops. And we got to eat candy when we sang churchy songs. So I'll never understand how that happened, but it did. But I learned that God is not a pattern loving God anyway. He loves to disrupt our lives. Have you have you noticed that? God is someone who loves to disrupt the status quo that we've got going on in our lives. Like, if you haven't been disrupted yet, I pray for a mighty heavenly disruption on your life that gets you on the path that you are destined to be on. Not the one that your parents say you have to be on, not the ones that your coaches say you're supposed to be on, teachers or mentors. No, coaches and mentors are not God. They are not the end all be all. They are a helper. They're amazing. They're there for a purpose, but they're not God. No one can take the place of him. Now, if you don't believe in God, that's okay. Stay here. Stay listening to this podcast because I'm sharing with you things that will disrupt the patterns you have going on in your life. We cannot live a life towards our destiny. We cannot create. We won't tap into the inner strength on our way to our destiny if all we're doing is staying focused on and living in and repeating patterns. I am a pattern disruptor by God's grace. Like, sometimes it is such a heavy weight for me. If you understood how heavy it is for me to carry this weight of, oh my gosh, I am a voice. I use my voice. It comes with a weight, right? I can't just carelessly throw my voice around, but I see the patterns, I see the horrors, I see the things. I can't unsee things. I've asked. I even asked God to take this all away from me. I sure did. I prayed many times, God, please take this away. Why? Because people hate that I disrupt things, including jobs. I am a pattern disruptor of jobs, in jobs. I see the patterns. I see the way that people around me are living. I hear the conversations. Do you know how hard it is for me to sit in an environment with people who are comfortable being in a toxic environment? And all they're doing, they're happy of the 401k and the PTO and the benefits and and staying, but yet some of these same people are miserable because they've traded their soul for a paycheck. They're in the pattern of pleasing, pattern of not seeing their family as often as they'd like. Why? Because they need the money, but they chase the money. And conversations, do you know what it's like to be, and this goes for any and every environment. I pay attention to conversations and the words that are coming out of people's mouths. I can't unhear it. So one of the things my stocks mentor has said since I've been in her space for 4 years is that one of the hardest things, and I'm paraphrasing, that you will go through when you're building wealth and when you're changing your life is who you're around, the conversations, the pay attention to that. And she's right, because one of the hardest things for me in building wealth in my life is having to sit around people who can't see past the 401k, who stay in the job and who's more than qualified to leave. And then I look at my own self. Then I have to look in the mirror and say, well, Tiffany, why are you still in an environment that doesn't deserve you? I know that sounds bold, and it is. If we choose being in an environment, staying in environments that don't deserve us, it's not a bad thing. It just means that we have grown numb and comfortable to the things that, I mean, what if, just ask yourself this question. What if the very job you're in right now is the one you're not supposed to be in, and it's robbing you of your next journey, your next vision. It's robbing you of your next level. And friends, oh wow, yes. It can feel lonely, but disrupting the pattern of being around friends who do not treat you like a friend, whose conversations are small and no vision, drama, gossip, and no. It's like we have to be careful with who we hang around, who's in our circle. That's a pattern I see, and yet until people get the memo that hey, it's okay to not hang around those people. It's okay to give yourself the permission to break the pattern and disrupt the pattern so that you can also get to your next level. By the way, not everyone is meant to go with you in your journey. Eagles do not fly with chickens. They just don't. And the patterns that we have, this could be nutritional patterns, exercise patterns, workout, health, what patterns, going on social media, what we choose to do in the very first thing that when we wake up, that's a pattern. Pattern of how we're treating our kids, how we're treating our spouses, how we are treating ourselves, the decisions that we make, the words that we speak, the like I said, the health. Are we putting in our bodies what is meant to help our bodies grow and thrive? Or are we cutting off the thriving and grabbing crap because an influencer or or something like we don't do what we know or should, but instead we do what we want, and that's fine. We all have free will. I was so caught up in the pattern of people pleasing that recently I've been having a ton of epiphanies. I call them Tiffany's epiphanies, and you're hearing that today. One of Tiffany's epiphanies. I've had the epiphany that I got so caught up in performing and proving that I was seeking permission to do the very things that God has placed in me to do. And I questioned them because I have had the messaging of, well, that's not possible. You know, I've heard this messaging. These are the words I've heard. Well, podcasts don't make a ton of money because who wants to listen to a podcast and nobody's going to buy anything in a podcast? And again, I'm paraphrasing. Or if you really want to get people in front of you, then you need to get in front of the camera and create, create the things so people can come. That's fine. But what if I really want to build a business in a different way that hasn't really been done before, but is done because I've been doing the research and the proof is that it can be? But what if, because it's not being done, that people think that the only way to build something is the certain way that works best for them or what works best for everyone? But what if I want to grow my podcast and leverage it and then offer the thing that I'm building? Because let's face it, every time someone presses play and listens, they listen to what I've been promoting. And yes, a podcast is like a book. We buy the book, right? Podcast, you listen to the podcast. Being a pattern disruptor, breaking patterns is not going to be easy. It's the equivalence of like a Joan of Arc. That's the equivalent. Being a disruptor, have you noticed that nobody, not one person loves a disruptor? Why? Because it shakes up the norm, shakes up the status quo. Nobody wants to get beyond their level of comfort. Nobody likes a person who turns on a light. It's like going in basement filled with vampires, turning on lights and waking them up. A pattern disruptor? No one likes it when a kid. Here's something you might chuckle at. My birth mom, we were forced to have, me, my twin sister, and my older sister, we were forced to have a relationship with our birth mom, which caused a lot of confusion. And it created some chaos, lots of chaos in my life. And she is the reason that we ended up in foster care. Her and my biological dad decided that alcohol would be their choice. So that's the choice they made. They chose that over us and then got mad when we got taken out of their home. Well, they caused it, so it's not our fault. But I have always been a disruptor and I've always said things. And yes, it used to piss people off. In fact, it used to piss my birth mom off a lot. And then I thought there was something wrong with me. Then I thought, oh no, I can't be listened to unless I change how I'm sounding. People don't like it when I speak up. But being a pattern disruptor is someone that gets people out of their comfort level and comfort zone in a way that they don't like it. But I've tried hiding. Remember, I prayed it away. I tried. But the more that I tried, I started getting more healing. Isn't that funny? God, take it away. I can't. So instead, I'm going to give you healing and that's going to help you so that you can show up more powerfully because you're bringing me glory. Yeah, how does that work? Isn't that funny? Isn't it funny that when we set out to do something specific, how God can meet us and give us the experience? I said it at the very beginning, and I prayed it over you because I pray that you have an experience with God that changes your life for the better. And I didn't understand up until very recently how God made me and why he made me the way that he did. I spent so many years of my life up until very recently apologizing for being who I am. And so I I tried to fit in. I sought permission to be somebody else. I tried to hide. In fact, I rejected I rejected parts of myself. And God doesn't create junk. He didn't reject us. He didn't reject me, but I rejected parts of myself because of facing rejection from people. It started with the people that birthed me. Then it started with the almost adoptive home. Abuse is a form of rejection, abandonment. Abuse is a form of disrespect. Abuse is, it's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. And to use scripture to abuse children, no. Including people, no, no, no. That's manipulation. There's other words that I won't use today, but being a pattern disruptor, I rejected that part of me because I didn't think I was good enough. And I didn't think I was supposed to be this way. And I apologized for it. In fact, even to this day, there are some people, some biological family members that do not like the version I am and that I have stepped into and I have become because they don't see me in that light. And that's a them thing. There are some family members who cheer me on, who encourage me. They know who they are when they listen to this, because I know they will. It took a lot for me to go through healing to be able to get onto this podcast and tell you what I did today with strength, courage, and confidence. I have disrupted patterns of performance so that I can get on and do what God has put in me to do to the best of my human ability. And you want to know how I know that this podcast, including the hundreds of others I have done, is going to take off and people are going to listen to this and their lives are going to change? Do you want to know how I know that? Because it's a mixture of faith, the healing, like all the work I've done. I don't have to work harder for God to move. God is the one who gave me this dream. In fact, I have been on stages, I've spoken. It's my dream to get in front of people, mostly virtual because right now I'm not able to travel, but mostly virtual, and do like TED Talks, do workshop talks, do I have it on my one page worksheet, one page sheet about who I am and what I do. My dream is to get in front of people and talk about things like this: transformation, leading in your job without burnout. Goodness, do you know how many people are in leadership positions that are burned out AF and they can't figure out why their department is in an uproar or a revolving door? And yet they won't take responsibility or accountability, but they blame the people. They blame that they're not getting the training stuff. It's like, well, you guys, it starts with you. It starts at the top. One of the things I remember praying to God is that I told him, I said, I want to use my voice to share my story, to bring transformation and hope and use humor. People come in one way and they leave another. And guess what has happened? That's what's happened. People who have paid me as clients, that's what's happened. They come in exhausted and not setting boundaries and not putting themselves first. And then they put themselves first and it feels foreign, but they have this joy and confidence and courage. And now they're setting boundaries and they're not stopping. And it feels freaking amazing. I can see I'm still connected to some of them on social media. It's amazing to see that they're still going and they're they're doing it because they wanted to, not because they had to. But they got to a place where they're stuck in the maze. Like, Tiffany, how do I get out of the maze? That's the main thing people come to me for. How do I get out of this confusion snowball? How do I get more clarity? How do I get more energy? And then we go to town and we dig and we find out where the culprit is. And so that concludes this episode. And I want to say thank you so much for you taking the time to fill up your cup and put you first today. By the way, invite people. I'm going to ask you to please share this with your friends and your family. Share it with someone because you never know what people are going through behind the scenes. You never know if someone is contemplating not being here in the next 5 minutes or tomorrow. I'm not here to waste time. I'm not here to convince or prove or pull people or force people, drag people. I'm not here to do that. And so, thank you so much for being here. And that concludes this episode.